Real talk, real impact, unfiltered and unapologetic. This is FemmeIcon.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Mahvish Akhtar, and I'm here again with another episode of FemmeIcon. I've been trying to get on, and I don't know, it kept disconnecting me, and there was some disturbance. Before we begin with our topic, which is gender role in media and how it shapes us, specifically fairy tales. And this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and I have so much research on it because this is one of the topics that we did. As a journalist, we covered this so much, not just in fairy tales, but overall. Of course, that is what we're studying: how to manipulate. Not manipulate, not in a bad way, always. Not always in a bad way. How media, communication can, how we can benefit from it, and how we can pass on information, how we can communicate. And fairy tales has always been one of my favorite topics to discuss and to talk about, because I've grown up being a huge fan of fairy tales. I've loved Disney for as long as I can remember, and then when I grew up and I started analyzing all these things and went to journalism school. For those of you who don't know, all right. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a journalist, and this whole Femmerepublica thing is I started later, and of course it's still related to journalism somewhat. Yeah. So yeah, when I started to analyze, how media and written material and the stuff that we see and how it affects us, and what is usually the intention behind giving these things to us and showing us this stuff, it really did blow my mind. And I did find it extremely interesting. And then I started exploring it more and more, as we will see. I did want to apologize to all of you. We were supposed to do this yesterday, but I wasn't feeling too well. Rainy weather kind of affects my RA, my autoimmune problem. All my joints kind of flare up, pain and swelling and whatnot. And then I thought I'd be able to do it today, which I am right here. But yeah, I should have taken it easy today to be on time for you guys. But yeah, kind of a busy day. And then, I tried my best to be on time. But, when the pain starts, it comes. You can't really control the pace, and you can't really control how bad it is and what time it comes at. So you just got to go with the pace. Again, I apologize for the delay, and I apologize. But then I figured, I don't want to waste another day and not do this. And it is live. It is online. You guys can watch it at any time, those of you who can't make it, live. But I do really enjoy having you guys here and having the back and forth and communicating, and then just kind of, having a discussion. क्योंकि उससे ये होता है कि कहने को तो I'm talking, and what's the difference. Second, बहुत सारी बातें ऐसी होती हैं, no matter how much research I have, जो मेरे भी जहन से निकल जाती हैं, जो मैंने भी नहीं सोची होती हैं. और you guys, आप लोग, you bring the conversation to life, really. So लेकिन आज you guys will see my process, क्योंकि होता ही है, normally I write everything down, even if it's something that I'm so assalamu alaikum to everybody who's joining. You see the topic. मैं पूरा नहीं लिख सकी topic because it was a long one, but usually होता है कि I write everything down because I don't want to carry 2-3 things and put 2-3 things on my desk and rearrange everything and then flip pages कि ये book निकालनी है और वो book निकालनी है या computer लेके आना है उसको turn on करना है this and that kind of takes more time and it's easier for me to just put everything all together. But today you'll see at least 2 or 3 of my references because थोड़ी सी मेरे कंधे का problem था, so I didn't write everything down and I just kind of put, sticky notes in different places. So yeah, you'll get to see that process today. Okay, how many things it takes to pull up a research, put together research for maybe 45 minutes or 1 hour live session के लिए. So today our topic is please let me know अगर मेरी आवाज़ ना आ रही हो या I need to talk louder or slower या anything like that. So we're talking about storytelling and stereotypes, and specifically we will talk about media in general, of course, but specifically how fairy tales and media shape gender roles. So we will definitely focus on fairy tales, but we will talk about how media plays a great role. In first, we'll hit the media section of it, and then we'll go on and talk about. So hello to everybody who's joining. So we know that media plays a big role in shaping who we are and shaping our experiences. But media also plays a big role in not just our experiences, but जिसको हम तरबियत कहते हैं ना, training. Media हमारी training भी करता है, right? इस चीज़ को हम realize नहीं करते. हमसे मेरा मतलब है हमारे बच्चों की और teenage ages तक many times उन चीज़ों की ट्रेनिंग जो माँ बाप नहीं कर पाते, जो गार्डियन जो होते हैं बच्चों की वो नहीं कर पाते, वो चीज़ें मीडिया सिखा देता है. अब हमें तो ये लगता है अक्सर कि क्या ऐसा भी क्या है जो बातें मीडिया सिखा देगा या जो टीवी से या मूवी से बच्चे सीख जाएंगे. बच्चे तो वो सीखते हैं जो घर में हो रहा है. They need modeling, they need consistent modeling and repetition of things, which is absolutely true. But that is exactly what media is giving them. So research says that as young as 17 months, babies as young as 17 months start to retain information that they see on TV. तो हमारे जो कॉन्सेप्ट होते हैं ना, कोई शो लगा के बच्चों को बिठा दें and then that repeats and the kids just are watching it. इन्हें क्या समझ आ रही है? इन्हें समझ आ रही है. They are actually retaining the information. So the point is कि हम अगर कोई ऐसा शो भी लगा रहे हैं जो बिल्कुल भी बुरा नहीं है, just remember कि they are understanding and they are retaining it. या अगर उनको understand नहीं भी हो रहा तो उसमें जो चीज़ें हो रही हैं, they will mimic it, and we know that they will mimic it and they will put that in their brains and that will become a part of their lives, part of their personality. तो 2 से 3 साल की उम्र तक वो चीज़ें जो वो देख रहे हैं टीवी में, ज़ाहिर है जो हम सिखा रहे हैं वो तो है, लेकिन चूँकि हम मीडिया की बात कर रहे हैं, वो चीज़ें जो वो देख रहे हैं टीवी में, those become part of their personality. Author of one of the studies, Frederick and Robert, their objectification theory offered a framework of understanding sexual objectification of women. So this is in the wrong place, I'm sorry. So we're going to talk about this after talking about this theory. So ये तो हमने explain किया कि छोटे बच्चों को भी बचपन से ही जो वो देख रहे हैं उसी चीज को वो internalize कर रहे हैं. Yeah. All right. I'm sorry. That book underneath it's too big and it's okay, I'm gonna have to close it. All right. So now we're gonna move on to media theory of social construct. Social construction of behavior is determined by culture rather than biology or sex. So this theory says, this is the first theory that we're discussing. This is a sociological theory. Now this theory says that what we do in a society, what we do as people, is not determined by whether we were born male or female. It's not determined by, all right, so we were born male or female, and now we're going to live as a woman, or now we're going to live as a man. It's determined as what we're taught. ठीक है ना, हमें क्या सिखाया जा रहा है. ये नहीं कि अब हमें क्या दिया गया है, हमें कोई क्लूज नहीं दिए गए, हम कमरे में हैं और हमें कमरे से निकलने नहीं दिए गया, हम उसी में पले बढ़े जा रहे हैं. हमसे कहा जा रहा है तुम्हें लड़कियों की तरह रहना है. हमें नहीं पता होगा ये तुम्हें, अब तुम लड़के हो, तुम्हें लड़कों की तरह रहना है. हमें नहीं पता होगा what that means unless somebody teaches us or somebody shows us what that means. ठीक है. Of course some innate qualities हैं जो आपको, like eating and drinking, कुछ innate qualities हैं for a man and a woman जो होंगी. But other than that, this theory says कि बाकी जो चीज़ें आपको समझी जाएंगी, आप वो समझेंगे. And this theory is, remember, this theory is about media. This is talking about media. This is not talking about your social relations, your parents, whatever. It is not a training type of thing कि आपको train कैसे किया, nature versus nurture type theory नहीं है. This is talking strictly about media. So आप कहाँ से ये चीज़ grasp करते हैं कि आपको, how do you have to act if you're a man, how do you have to act if you're a woman? You learn that from media. So there is detail to that, but I don't want to get into that because I want to get to the actual topic. Now, इसमें ही वही जो अभी ये gender की बात आ रही थी कि how is the objectification of women, how that plays a role, and how gender roles are defined. And then when we get into all of those details, how do we separate, okay, how is this message given? You know, is social construct में, even to this day, 2025, how is this message given? ठीक है ना. अभी तो हम जनरल मीडिया की बात करें, अभी हम फेरी टेल्स तक नहीं पहुंचे, because वो तो फिर बहुत ही excessive हो जाता है. And I'm talking as a person who, you know, I actually started investigating FairyTales because I was a huge fan, and I've literally been to, and at this point in my life with everything that's happening in the world, I'm actually not proud of it anymore, but I've been to Disney World like 3 times as an adult. बचपन में तो कहाँ कोई लेके जाता हम लोगों का, you know, Pakistan में I don't know how old when I left Pakistan. Yeah, I was quite young, but even as a kid, बचपन में ही जाते हैं, and you go visit as a kid. Nobody would care to do that. Nobody had the money and all that. Like, I didn't visit as a kid. I visited as an adult, like a married woman, because that's when I wanted to go. That's when I was interested, like, you know. But then that is when I realized that there is something wrong with this. This whole, you know, that's when I read about Walt Disney and what he was doing, what kind of person he was. That's also another topic for another day. But then the more you find out, the more you realize how problematic all these things are. So this is called, as you know, gender identity and gender role. So then how do you form your identity? Like, who are you? I'm a Muslim, I'm a Pakistani, I'm a student, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a son. These are your identities. And then what is your role as this so-and-so, as this mother, as this student? What is your role? So if you decide, okay, I'm a man, that you could be told that sitting in a room, never having gotten out of the room, never having turned the TV on ever, never having read a book ever in your life. ठीक है ना, ये तो आपको पता चल सकता है कि ओके, आइडेंटिटी मेल, आइडेंटिटी फीमेल. अब आपका रोल क्या है? तो ये मीडिया की जो सोशल कंस्ट्रक्ट की थ्योरी है, नाउ ये जो कंस्ट्रक्ट होता है ना सारा जेंडर रोल, ये आप you don't come out with it from the womb. That happens. How does that happen? That happens from what the media world has created for you. हमारे real world भी. So that's what they're trying to tell you. That's what they're trying to tell you. They're trying to tell you कि even जो हमारे real world है, they have taken the idea of what a woman should be and what a man should be from media. Because what man and woman should be or are actually are not what the media is telling you to be. उसके reasons क्या हैं जिसकी वजह से मीडिया ने एक वो shape and form बना दिया? वो भी एक बहुत ही different discussion है, बहुत ही लंबी discussion है, लेकिन मीडिया ने एक बना दिया. Consumerism, patriarchy is at the top of the list, but then consumerism, they need to sell things, and to sell things they have to make things look, or the world look, a certain way. They want people to watch their shows to be able to sell things. So there's a huge list, right? So जब हम बात कर रहे हैं औरतों की objectification की, can't say the word today, उसकी भी क्या reason है? Women have to be unsatisfied with themselves so they can sell them all sorts of products, whether it's clothing or makeup or diet pills or foods that are way more expensive than regular foods. Also all sorts of things. And then men have to want to achieve want certain types of women. So they have to buy their wives or their girlfriends those things so their women can look like that. Because जिस तरह की औरतें टीवी में हैं उस तरह की औरतें तो दुनिया में कहीं नहीं हैं. So हर एक की dissatisfaction और औरतों की objectification पर that whole media system kind of works. So gender identity, gender roles are dependent on that. And then मर्दों के gender role भी उसी से decide हुए हैं because उसी मीडिया से decide हुए हैं, because obviously फिर मर्दों को पता होना चाहिए कि you can do these things to women. You have to want your wives to look beautiful. They have to be thinner than this. They can achieve this, and this. They should be cooking for you. But you work so hard. अब अगर एक मर्द के पेरेंट्स उसको ये बात बता रहे हैं तो उन्होंने कहाँ से लर्न की? और उनके पेरेंट्स को किसने बताया? Because they weren't born with this idea. So the cycle continues, and our media is, kind of wants to keep it there. It's important. And I know it's late. Had we had time, there are ads, and I mean, I would urge you guys to just Google ads from the 40s and 30s and हमारे न्यूज़पेपर के वैसे भी न्यूज़पेपर के अंदर के एड्स और इवन हमारे पीटीवी के एड्स, दे सीम इनोसेंट इनफ, लेकिन उसमें जो रोल्स, जेंडर रोल जो नज़र आ रहे हैं, ड्रामा को, इन चीज़ों को तो छोड़ ही दो, वो तो हमें पता ही है, बट सिर्फ जो एड्स हैं उसमें सामने नज़र आ रहा है, एवरीथिंग इज सो क्लियर कि यू विल नॉट सी देम deviating from कि मर्द का क्या रोल है और औरत का क्या रोल है. अब हम बाहर की बात भी कर सकते हैं, वेस्ट में was the same way, but we'll just talk about Pakistan because we're talking about here. But yeah, it was exactly every single ad. Woman is cooking oil, soap, this and this. It was all women. Or mardon ko, they were always coming home, bringing something from outside. But every household, inside household item had to be women. Now let's turn to fairy tales, because this is really, really important. Because we let our children, especially today, especially our girls, watch these fairy tales, and it's important for even the younger girls to learn this. I mean, young women to learn this, because we have cousins, we have younger sisters, we have friends, sisters, and we know so many young girls that we might even be responsible for, because some of you are at that age where you're teaching and you're, assistant teachers or whatnot. So it's important to know this. It's extremely important to understand and realize how big of a damage this does. And staying blind to it and saying, it's not that big of a deal, is really not helpful for you or for anybody else. So there are a few things in this that is really beyond just that, what's the big deal kind of thing. It's really, it's bigger than that. So there's a lot of things that people say that, it's just, good fun. This is just, it's not real life, blah, blah. It's not real life. But the kids that are watching it, for them, it's real life. They're real people. Right? And like we talked about, and we'll talk about it more in terms of emotional, psychological effect that it has on girls and even adults, even on us. Like I said, I love Disney. I love everything Disney. And I love, okay, so I'll admit it. I'm a absolute huge comic book fan, a huge Marvel fan. And again, now things are different and you're seeing the world, we're all seeing the world so differently. And we're realizing how the world is and how things are different. But when I'm watching, going back to when I'm watching a movie, or when I was as a child reading a comic, right? I wasn't into, as a child, interestingly enough, as a child, I wasn't into fairy tales. I didn't watch a whole lot of them. I don't know about reading them. I don't remember. But I did read comics. So they were quite real to me. It wasn't that I didn't know कि ये real नहीं है. But as a kid, हमारे पास कुछ देखने को तो खास कोई होता नहीं थे. शायद स्पाइडरमैन के, I'm old, okay? शायद सुबह स्पाइडरमैन का कार्टून कोई आता था. I don't know. I don't quite remember. But हम पढ़ा करते थे comic. If any of you is that age. But they were real in the sense that these characters are not real, they don't exist, but there's a real connection. And even now, I know that these characters are not real. We watch movies, we watch shows connected to those characters, but there's still a sense of extreme relatability. And I know that this has affected my life. I'd be lying if I said that this did not affect my life in any way and it hasn't changed my life in any way. And would I be, honestly speaking, better off had I not been introduced to these characters? Maybe. This is an honest answer. Do I want to go back in time and not be introduced to all of this? Absolutely not. I enjoy it. But that's the point I'm making. कि इसका अफेक्ट होता है. अब आप इसको नेगेटिवली लेना चाहें या पॉजिटिवली लेना चाहें, ये आपके ऊपर है. As a person, I'm not talking about a child. Child तो डिसाइड नहीं कर सकता ना. अब इस पॉइंट पे आप इसको अंडरस्टैंड करना चाहें या ना करना चाहें, वो आपके ऊपर है. लेकिन इसका असर ज़रूर पड़ता है. So going back to the point कि हम ये समझते हैं, oh, what is it? Good versus evil, or triumph in life and adversity का this and this and this. और हम हर उस चीज़ को जो गलत है और जो गलत मैसेज दे रही है उसको हम ग्लैमराइज कर देते हैं in fairy tales. And we'll go over everything that we consider to be positive. And let's name a few things that are considered positive. So we say things like imagination, creativity, problem solving, memory skills, listening, cooperation, processing complex emotions, right? इस तरह की बातें की जाती हैं. And then empathy, being brave, morals and values. So these are things that we usually say that come with being watching or reading fairy tales. Please keep these things in mind when we go over each fairy tale in as much detail as we can, because we will. And then I'll leave it up to you to decide how much positive that you can. And I'm sure there's a little bit of positive here and there होगा. ऐसे तो नहीं होता कि हर चीज़ में negative ही है, but And the thing that bothers me, 8 trees I'm going to say before we go into one by one of analyzing fairy tales. Okay, just explain to me कि every evil person or most of these evil people जिनसे हम इन सब शहजादियों को and all these good people को बचा रहे हैं are women. सबसे glaring message जिनसे हम बचा रहे हैं, of course they're bad people, got that. ये message ठीक है. But they're all strong, opinionated women who are doing things their way. Now, I'm not saying it's in stories mean they're not actually bad. They are bad. They're killing people. They're betraying these young girls. They're hurting them and all of those things. But the message here is that strong women who want their own way of life, who want to run their countries, their businesses, their even at an older age, they want to dress up, they want to put on makeup, they want to be wild. I mean, they want to be bold and, show who they are to the world. Will, one way or the other, be evil. So when a young girl looks at a woman who is strong, opinionated and has a bold personality, likes to dress up with makeup and clothes, or, speaking out and just, is loud, she's not going to think of her as, oh, she is so cool. She's probably going to think evil queen. Right? That's the vibe she's going to get. That's what's going to come to her. That's the first thing. If you ask this little girl, anyone, to say, hey, to ask her, who do you think she would be in a fairy tale land? She's probably going to say she's the evil queen. Because she's not young, she's not timid, She's not taking out orders from everybody. She's not doing what she's asked. She's telling people what to do. She's wearing what she wants. She's doing things her way. That's almost every single fairy tale. So I have this plaque type thing that I got from the free world, of course. That says, it has the face of the evil queen, and it says, I am the evil queen. And because I always related to the evil queen, not in every single way, but in a lot of the ways, like I always thought that, well, I mean, I wouldn't hurt the little girl, but I mean, she wasn't ready to. She was 14. She wasn't ready to rule a whole town or country or whatever it was. I mean, give it a minute. So my kids always ask me this question. I mean, not always, but it will say, they're like, why do you have this? Why do you relate to, the bad guy? I mean, she's evil. And they haven't been old enough for me to explain to them why. I don't think that particular character, the way it's designed, is evil, but why the concept of the evil queen is really just bogus. So yeah, so that's something to think about, but that's just one of many, many things. Now, off the top of my head, here are some things that are extremely dangerous. We will go again over things that are specifically, dangerous. But so all the princesses are really good at housework, right? Like Cinderella, Snow White. I can't think of names on top of my head, but those of you who know, that's what they do. They're great. And the ones who are not, like the stepsisters, are terrible at housework, and they're always getting Cinderella to do their work. And that's the whole idea. They're princesses, and they're so good at the housework, and they're so, their innocence and their ability to do the work, that is one of their assets, right? That's why they're loved and cherished by their prince and their people who do love them and cherish them. And then for the girls, for the princesses, marriage is the highest achievement. Like, they're doing all these other things, they're showing them, I don't know, avenging, not Cinderella, but some of the other stories, avenging their parents, or getting their kingdoms, or whatever. What else? Lekin, getting the prince, getting married, the happily ever after with the guy is the highest achievement, right? So that is what, and again, I'll relate that back to other media as well. कि अक्सर अभी भी जैसे rom-coms and other some TV shows, a lot of them are just about that. For women, okay, the highest achievement is getting the guy. The highest achievement for women is getting the guy. And for men, it can be other things. In fairy tales, maybe, for the guy, it can be other things. It can be money, it can be status, it can be becoming king, it can be becoming, winning something, like जैसे उसमें Rapunzel में, there were other things. I'm sorry, I haven't read these exact stories. Even now, I skim through them to get, there were so many to go through, I'm sorry. So there are other things that can be high reward for them. It wasn't always the princess, but for the girl, it was always getting the guy or getting married in the end. So these are the things that we need to keep in mind, because we don't remember these things. Same as me, we don't remember these things. These are the things that were going through my mind when I was, researching and writing things down. And I was like, wait, so, we know this to be a fact. Then मर्दों के लिए क्या था? The prince. What were they, getting? What were they achieving? So then I had to research. And then I had to go read that part of the story to see, is that true or not? So, and then the other things that were extremely troubling, which I would, go through those parts of the story in more detail, was most of these women, young girls, because their ages were like 14, 15, 16, 13, 12. All these girls were, and please Google it, they were all young girls. They're waiting to be kissed. Some of them are not even awake. They're sleeping, presumed dead or sleeping. So basically, we are celebrating assault on minor underage girls. About is baare mein, we have to think about what we are letting our young girls consume. And for those of us who are adults, I will say it. I have known this. I have studied it. I have researched it. For school meaning for university, for these kinds of, talks and workshops, and just to write about it, I've known it. But that's the problem. That's the problem. And I'll put myself right in the middle of it, top of the list. Get Disney and Walt Disney, and then Disney के movies and shows and Disney World, ये जो पूरा एक वो है, it's done it in a way कि all of us have been under a spell कि हम इन सब चीज़ों को नहीं देखते. Because that fairy tale, that whole idea of, oh, Prince Charming, somebody is going to come and save me from my life and take me to a better one, we are ready to overlook literally being molested by a complete stranger. And that is the idea we're letting sink into our young girls. That's not a small thing. So that's the world and our girls grow up in. And then that happens not just in FairyTales, it happens in other shows and other TV shows and movies and whatnot, and then that's reinforced. And if we think about, FairyTales, वो कोई एक दफ़ा तो नहीं देखी जाती ना, एक दफ़ा तो नहीं पढ़ी जाती. That's over and over again. छोटे बच्चे तो, like we said in the beginning, हर चीज़ को बार-बार देखते हैं. Over and over. हर चीज़ को बार-बार पढ़ते हैं. And by the time I had kids, I had enough sense to not put, any fairy tales in front of them. Just, I had to be very picky and choosy. But yeah. I feel like even the ones I did buy them were not. When I was reading them afterwards with them, I was like, oh, that's a bad idea. Like Alice in Wonderland. When I loved that story always. And when I was reading it with my kids, and I was like, wait. All of these characters are on drugs. Like, they're all high. What is happening? And why am I letting my kids read this? So much gets skipped because we are so desensitized to what is happening. So, moving on, and we will discuss it in more detail in just a minute. And then we have characters like Little Mermaid, or I can't think of anyone else because now I just want to go into detail. So what is Little Mermaid? I'll go back to Cinderella. I mean, these characters are waiting to be, they're just completely othered. What does that mean? Waiting to be othered. I'm sorry. Looking for that one. I don't want to skip that. Yeah. I mean, they have been othered, right? they're waiting to be validated by other people. And there is a psychological theory that explains that it's actually a disorder. 2-3 different disorders, but we will talk about that. And I'm not saying that about everything because I want to focus on that, and we've already taken up so much time. So these are the girls. I mean, all of them have some kind of issue, but these are the girls who want to be validated by other people. They're waiting for someone to love them, someone to come and take care of them. So with Ariel, her name is Ariel, right? So the Little Mermaid girl. I'm sure I wrote it somewhere. I don't. So I'm kind of medicated right now. I'll just, go ahead and tell you guys. I get spaced out a little bit because I wanted to do this today, and I did. So I figured I'd just, kind of take some pain medicine so I can talk to you guys and sit straight up. So I guess her name is Ariel, from what I remember. Yeah. For somebody who's Disney obsessed, I'm pretty not remembering anything right now. Yeah. So for her to lose her voice, and for her to, which means voice is equivalent to her thoughts, her intelligence. So for her to lose, because if you can't speak, you can't show your character, your personality, your thought, your intellectual level to anyone. So she's lost her personality, basically. All for one person. So she's been othered. She's been separated from her own people, and then from the person that she wants to be with, from him and his people. So she's completely alone right now. Right? So she needs validation from outside herself. External validation. Same thing is happening to Cinderella. She needs external validation. She needs her fairy godmother or whoever else to tell her it's going to be okay, to help her, to make her into whatever she wants to be. So there's a lot of that going on with these girls. And that's what is being projected onto our young girls, and was projected to us, I'm sure. A lot of us need that. We can't just look in the mirror and say, gosh, I'm beautiful. I like the way I look. We either want to change ourselves, like we talked about media, kind of framing who we are and how we think of ourselves, because they need to make money off of us, because they want our men to shape what we wear and what we do with ourselves and how we function in this society. So we have never been able to, for the most part, look at ourselves and say, I love myself. I love the way I look. Or at least I'm okay with the way I look. I don't want to change anything. And I don't care even if I am attracted to that man, I don't care what he thinks of the way I look. He needs to like me for how I am. Because if he doesn't like me for how I am, then this is not going to work. Even if I do, if I am attracted to him and I do like him, this is not going to work if he doesn't, like me for the way I am right now. So not a lot of us think like that. And it's because of us wanting to have seen this behavior of having to throw ourselves constantly at men and for their pleasure. And then this idea that, everybody who is good is beautiful, and everybody who is not good or is evil is ugly, or kind of, warts and big nose and kind of a hump. Well, in this case, the hump she wasn't the bad guy, but in most cases. So now we're training. Again, this is the world that we're living in, and this is the training that we're giving boys and girls, that things that are not pretty are usually evil or bad. So now this is damaging for girls and for boys. And all of this, by the way, is not just for girls. We're concentrating on girls right now. But if you've heard a boy say, oh, this is girly, I don't like pink, this is hurting your boys too. Because what kind of man is he going to be when he grows up? Same exact man who, I have a lot to say about that, but then he's contributing to the patriarchy. Then he's becoming the same exact man that you wanted to get away from, that you complained about your entire life, that your father was, and if you had a father who didn't contribute to patriarchy, or a brother or husband that didn't, great for you, I'm happy for you, but there's very few of those. And I'm sure even though they could have improved, right? They could have done better. So yeah, it hurts everybody. It's not just the girls or the women, or it's for the boys as well. They need to learn. They need to learn that the behaviors that are being shown to them in general, whether it's the movies or the shows or the ads or whatever, they're not okay. Changes have to be made. All right. So let's move on to, and then let's move on to what I've been telling you that I'm going to move on to. Talking about these fairy tales one by one. And just kind of breaking it down and talking about what is the issue with what it is. There is another theory we could that I want to mention before we move on to that. I'm sorry, I know I'm making Beth wait a lot for this. It's the go. I'm so sorry. It's a third gender theory. So this is an interesting word, interesting one, the third gender theory. So this is, we have a gender where we female and then male, and then the third gender theory, it's you learn that we learn that in general, journalism. Yeah, I think the noise is catching up with me, but no, I will so this theory, it says that this theory says that there is gender roles that your family tells you what kind of gender what gender role you're going to have. Like, if you're a female, your family tells you, look, as per our religion, this is what you're going to do, and our culture. So a mix of culture and religion, you're told certain things you're going to do. And then if you're a man, as per culture and religion, you're going to do certain things. And then you get out in the world, you travel, and you learn what the world does. And then the mix of these three things, your culture, your religion, and your travels around the world. So in culture, your parenting, your family, all of that is part of culture. So these three things, you develop a role, including your identity, all of that is part of culture and religion, right? So you develop a certain role, and that would be called your gender role, your own identity as a person. That would be your gender role. And that goes for man and women. So that's female gender, male gender. And then there is a third gender. That gender is what the media creates. How we see you. What the media wants you to become. And that's an actual thing. By actual thing, I mean there's thought put into it. There's research put into it. Not thinking what's best for you. ये इस तरह नहीं होता कि जैसे पेरेंट्स कहते हैं कि तरबियत करनी है, हमारा जो भी पेरेंट्स का रिलीजन है, जो वो समझते हैं कि बेहतर है बच्चों के लिए, या जो कल्चर्स हैं, कल्चर की वैल्यूज़ हैं जो पेरेंट्स समझते हैं कि ज़रूरी है, या जो घर वाले हैं कि ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स हैं, उन्होंने किसी बात पे टोका कि नहीं ये सही नहीं है, या पेरेंट्स को कहा कि इसको ये मत सिखाओ, इसको ये बताओ. एक जो होती है चीज़ कि everybody is doing it because they're concerned for the child or children. With media, it's one of those things where thought goes into it, research goes into it, marketing, and all of these things go into it. Every show, every story, even with books, every story, every cover, precisely done for the purpose of, okay, we have to create an identity. We have to give them a role. We have to make sure they know what they have to do. And this is not something I'm telling you. This is not like a conspiracy theory, or this is not something like, oh, I heard this once and on this website. No, we learned this. This is something we study. There's research paper after research paper on this. These are created by, like researchers and people who actually know what they're doing in these areas. Sociologists and psychologists and marketing experts, to give us our roles and then apply them on shows, on movies, on all sorts of different medias, so they can tell us what our roles should be as men and women. I remember a speech from Reese Witherspoon. She's an actress, an American actress. I'm really not a huge fan of hers as an actor, but what she said was really just, struck me. She said something about, she was talking about wo aurton ka role in movies and TV shows, and how it's a lot of times inaccurate. So usme she made a comment, and she said that often in movies, there's men and women in action movies. When something goes wrong, the woman always turns to the man and says, what do we do now? Like she panics and says, what do we do now? And then she says, where in real life does it happen where something goes wrong and the woman turns to the man and says, what do we do now? And those of us who've been in relationships for a long time or have been married, at least I related to that. And she's about my age, and so people who are, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that too, but I definitely related to that. I'm at that point in my life where if something happens, or if we're in trouble, or God forbid, or something goes wrong, I'm not going to turn to my husband and say, oh my God, what do we do now? Most of the time when you are in a relationship or you're a couple, you're living as a family, there isn't one person that you turn to and say, what's going to happen now? We all know our jobs. If there is something going on, something is messed up, something happens, we all jump to what we need to do, right? So that idea to still promote the idea that man is going to do something about it. The guy knows what to do, and the woman is just going to be like, oh my God, tell me what to do. Oh my God. Okay, that's not a thing that happens. I don't think it ever happened. No matter what period of time that one lived in. So that was, and really everybody started laughing. Even the men in the crowd were like, that's true. I don't think my partner is going to ask me. She's just going to jump to doing what she needs to do, and I'm going to jump to doing what I need to do. And that's not even an insult to men, because that's pretty obvious that, everybody knows what they need to do. So yeah, there is real gender roles, and then there's the third one that the media makes up, that they want us to just think that are there and should be there because, they said so. So keep that in mind, please, for future, whenever you're watching something, because, now, because I've been doing this research and been working, with this, and when we write something or when we interview somebody and when we have to keep all of these things in our head. And a lot of times, not anymore, not for the newspapers or magazines that I've worked for in the past 10 years, alhamdulillah. But before that, there was a demand. When I wrote something, there was a demand to, tweak these little things. Or can you write it in a way that it says this? And there was a demand for that, and it was really hard to bend the truth in a certain way, to make it sound a certain way, it was hard. It was hard to do those kinds of things. Now we're going to come to that part that I hope you guys were waiting for, because that's the best part, where you tear these things apart and you see what they're trying to do to us. You see what we've been fed and what we've been... and I would love to do that with different shows and different stories that we know. I'd absolutely love to do it. So we talked about starting with Alice in Wonderland, and we mentioned everybody was high. I don't know what else they had, but everybody was high. And they actually showed in the movie, in the cartoon, that actually showed one of the, I think the caterpillars actually like smoking, and Alice has schizophrenia because of the way things are talking to her, and she talks about, so just talking about these kinds of things with with children, showing that kind of images, showing those kinds of grand things, that kind of makes it... We'll move on, because there's a lot to say, and I don't want to waste time on things that are not as important to mention. So the reason I'm mentioning these things is because we are glamorizing all of this. Keep this in mind. We're glamorizing all of this for little kids, right? And we are letting them get introduced to sickness, mental health issues, and they're being glamorized, and they're internalizing it. And we, as even as kids, as adults, as young adults, we are learning this, and we are glamorizing it, and we are learning that this is all okay, this is all normal. But in what world is all of this normal? So this one, some of this information I got from, where'd that go? From a research paper written, I lost it somewhere. Research done in 2021. Okay, I'll give you the information, the rest of the information. Okay, so we did Alice, and we were talking about Ariel. That's the Little Mermaid. So she has definitely a problem with hoarding. That's dysposophobia. I'm having a hard time, spelling things or pronouncing things. So that's one of her problems. And then we also know that she wants people to be pleased with her. She wants people to be okay with her, happy with her. And she's lost herself. She's lost herself in others. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge issue with these kinds of fairy tales and these kinds of stories, where that's what we're teaching little girls, that your worth is within other people. You only mean something if other people are giving you importance. If other people are telling you it's okay to be somebody. This was a tug of war between that villain woman and the prince, Eric. She was telling her, you're not worth anything, and he wasn't recognizing her because she was stuck. There was no way for her to say, which she could have, no, I'm okay being me. I care about him, but if he doesn't recognize that, I'm okay being me. There was nobody there telling her, hey, you're good enough. Who cares what that lady thinks? Who cares what he thinks? He will love you for you. There was no concept of that at all. So she became mentally unstable, and she started, this is actually classic. That does happen. That when people are not giving you the love and the affection that you need, you start to collect things and start to get that satisfaction from objects. That's actually classic. So I'm just going to refer to most of the stories that came from the Brothers Grimm. There were two brothers who wrote this, and way back when, in the 1800s. So I'm going to refer to those stories, and the Disney versions are kind of switched around, a lighter version of the Brother Grimm's stories. So we're going to stick to that, and those are my favorite ones because they're super dark and violent. That's not why I like them. I like them because they show the true face of fairy tales. No matter how soft we make them, no matter how much we try to change them, we have to recognize the core of why they came to be, why they became famous, and what they represent. Because of course they were folklore, stories from different countries, and like we have Hiranja, we have this, and these different ones like Hiranja, and then they have Romeo and Juliet, and then they became more and more. Some are German, some are Swedish, some are from different countries, and then they became more international. So of course, that's how Ariel became what. So we idealize it. Oh, her and her prince, and he barely shows up. He barely shows up in the story. I mean, what is there to idealize? People were fighting about Black Mermaid and White Mermaid, and she was actually from here, from there. It's like, do you understand the actual problem with this story? The woman, Wasif, and the woman is, she can't speak, and she's, she has a disorder, she's sick, she can't speak, nobody's supporting her. All these problems that are like coming at you, nobody in 2025, 2024 is going to speak about that and say maybe the movie shouldn't be made because of these problems and not because of the color of her skin. She's underwater, who cares? And that happens because of the third gender that we spoke about. Nobody cares about that because we have decided that the third gender is going to take place. There's a dispute. We can't stop letting women know that women are going to, that women have a role to play. That has to be done. We can fight about whether they're going to be black or white or brown or which part of the world they're going to be from. That we can debate because that's a non-issue. The actual issue has been decided. So next we're talking about is Elsa. Elsa and Anna both from Frozen. So they both have different disorders, and let's see. What are we doing here with them? Let's find out. Did we do that? All right. So Elsa, here's the thing. The parents were dead. They had each other. And, with all the lessons that they wanted to teach us, or little girls, and everybody loved it. Everybody was like, oh my God, this is about, girls triumphing and this and that, and them, coming out of these horrible situation. And everybody loved it because, oh, Anna was this girl who, made mistakes and she was all over the place. And we, but we didn't notice what they slipped in there. They slipped in this girl who couldn't focus. This girl who had trouble keeping it together. And if you notice those little scenes that came in where she was tripping all over herself, she had trouble waking up, keeping a routine. If you notice those scenes and the way they were put together, she couldn't keep a routine. She couldn't. And if you read, I have the DSM in front of me. I want to read the important ones rather than just go over every single point of every single disorder. But if you go over the points of what ADHD, AD and ADHD looks like, she has all of the qualifying factors. So what is the point of doing that? Are you normalizing that for little girls? Are you trying? Do you want them to act that way? What is the point? And with Elsa, she has the way she was set up, she has major depressive mood disorder. Major depressive, where you don't feel like doing anything, you don't enjoy anything, you're fatigued, you're tired, you want to stay in bed all the time, you want to sleep a lot, and you feel guilty for things that are not your fault, you blame yourself, and I can go down the list. So, and I will go down the list for another character. What is the point? What is the point for having these characters for little girls and showing them? And we're all thinking, oh, this is amazing. They're showing this and this and this. And then when girls act up, young girls, they're tweens and teens, and they act like these characters, then we say, they're बड़ी बदतमीज, अपनी बदतमीजी क्यों कर रही हैं, और ये इस तरह क्यों कर रही है, सारे दिन कमरे में बंद रहती हैं, और ये इस तरह की हरकत है, और बिल्कुल फोकस नहीं है, सुबह को जल्दी नहीं उठ पाती, और ये नहीं करती. We put it on them, but we didn't even think about it. We don't even think or put it together कि ये बच्चियाँ रोज या every other day या every weekend ये movies देख रही हैं, and we act like ये तो बहुत अच्छी movie है, such a good message, no issue there. Can you even take a wild guess why this is allowed, or why they're doing this? हमें तो चलो allowed because we had no idea, or we didn't know what was happening in this movie. We didn't know they were showing all this and they were glamorizing all of these behaviors that shouldn't be allowed. So why is this happening? Can any of you take a wild guess? Just think about वो सब चीजें जो नहीं होनी चाहिए. लड़कियों को ये एहसास होना चाहिए कि you can do anything you want. No. Feeling guilty for things that you didn't do, for the death of your parents, for, whatever else that is not okay. Things happen. Get up, move on, or talk to somebody. Talk to your sister. Bond with your sister. At no point did this show them bonding. Did they show them sharing their problems? I mean, they're in and out, going places, traveling, beach में they talked a little bit. That is not how you show sisters of a family bonding. At no point in any movie that I can remember, or any Disney, not Disney movie, but any fairy tale that they show families bonding or talking things out. I don't see that as perseverance. I don't see that as good triumphing evil. But that's me. Now, the evil queen, of course, we know she's a narcissist. She has NPD, narcissist personality disorder. She has self-important need for people to praise her, to tell her that she's the best. She has no empathy. Wants to be admired all the time, engrossed in being the best in her beauty, grandiosity. I should have this here. Yeah, so we have this here. I'm gonna need my glasses for it. Yeah, so these are the things that we have, because we're going to talk about Snow White in just a minute. So has a grandiose sense of self. So I have this book here. Usually I write everything down. This time I didn't have time to write everything down, so I just put the things that I couldn't remember, little thing, and that's why I'm just a little bit lost. This is DSM-5. Okay. Has a grandiose sense of self, preoccupied with fantasies. Now, the DSM-5 is using the word fantasy, right? So we need to keep this in mind, that when little kids are watching it, young girls are watching it, they are this idea that this woman or these characters are a reality. This idea that these characters are fantastical is actually becoming real for them. And I'll explain what I'm saying in a minute. Let me just read through this. Believe that he or she is special, they're unique, has a sense of entitlement. Yeah. So, just all of these things. Now again, NPD is a real thing, right? It's a real problem, but we're relating this to all women. Every woman in these fairy tales is evil. Every woman who wants to have any kind of control is evil. And because the good women, the nice girls, they just want to find someone to marry and live happily ever after. They don't want to shake everything up like these evil women do. And they're considered narcissistic, right? So here, the word, they're living in a fairy tale. Like, this is perceived as, DSM-5 is obviously accurate and whatnot. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to understand that we tend to mix this with reality. Our fairy tale and our reality tends to get mixed up. Has nothing to do with this particular sentence here, but we have to understand that our reality and our fairy tale gets mixed up, because when you're watching a fairy tale and you're not looking at, oh, this person has this problem, this person has this problem, you really have to sit down and analyze and then see, what am I seeing here? Rewind forward, read. You really have to dig in. So you really have to see where the fairy tale ends, where the reality of this begins, for people watching it, for people reading it. Because, one of the fairy tales in its original form, the brothers Grimm, they're two brothers, I said, that they used to write together. The original one made it into my son's curriculum from like last year's curriculum or whatever, and I was horrified. And I'll have to read you a little bit of that fairy tale, because I was horrified. I was like, we are not looking at what we're giving to our children. We're not paying attention, because obviously the intention was not to, and he's a boy, so I was even more horrified because he is a boy, So let's talk about Snow White. So speaking of Snow White, this is somebody else. Why did I not write Snow White next to the evil queen? Okay, so Snow White had, now she was being raised in a if you look at strictly the story, she's being raised with a very evil person. Her father is dead, killed by this evil person, so she's feeling betrayed. She's feeling she's in a lot of pain. So you can obviously see how she would have a lot of trauma. So she would have PTSD, post-traumatic stress. And she also, we see her cleaning a lot, right? We see her cleaning the house. We see her cleaning, I mean, not the house, the cottage that she goes to live with the doors with. So we see her cleaning that a lot. So I would say post-traumatic stress, right? Because that was a big part of, for one, I think that was there to give the message that she's a good person, she's helpful, she's cleaning, and of course, cleaning, because that's what, women are supposed to be doing, cleaning and helping the men, because they go, and it was a big thing about they go and they do the work, the mining. So she stays back and cleans and cooks for them. But also because she was such a big cleaner, and it was such a big part of the story, that I think OCD was the point. And when you do have trauma, when you do have PTSD, OCD can be a part of how you deal with it, how you deal with the nightmares and with the trauma of it. And I do want to go ahead and just read a little bit from it. I have it. Hang on. I'll just make it easier for you guys to understand when I'm going through the DSM, because then, so I'm just going to go through where'd I go? Here it is. Yeah, the post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'll just go through it in terms of, yeah. So post-traumatic stress disorder is directly experiencing the trauma or witnessing in person the events as it occurs to others. So it could be your own trauma, or it could be somebody else's trauma, but you experience them experiencing it. Learning that the traumatic events occurred to a close family member. So you learn that somebody went through something really terrible that you are close to. Experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to aversive details of a traumatic event. Somebody talks to you about it over and over again, or mentions it, or you see effects of it around you, or something of the sort. So with Snow White, we see betrayal, deaths, being pursued, the huntsman, and the apple situation, I guess. Well, that happened later. But just, knowing that somebody's trying to kill you, knowing that you can't go back home, and all of those situations are, signs of PTSD. And again, the reason we mentioned this again and again, the reason we're talking about it, is that these are children's fairy tales. These are children's stories. And they've been redone. They've been told over and over again, and they've been, rebooted so and so. But the idea is that you keep telling these stories, these horrible stories where these girls are, tortured in different ways, psychologically and sometimes even physically, and made to do all these things that they shouldn't have to ever do. And then you say that these are uplifting stories, these are stories, moral stories, and how? And why do we need these stories? Why can't you come up with new ones to teach healthy lessons to our boys and girls? Why do we need repetition of these of these exact stories. I don't understand it. It does not make any sense to me. So then it leads to avoidance, which is also one of the signs of PTSD. So we see it here. Avoidance of stimuli with the traumatic event beginning after the traumatic event occurred as evidenced by one or both of the following: avoidance of or efforts to avoid distressing memories, thoughts, or feeling about or closely associated with the traumatic events, avoiding efforts or external reminders of people and places, feeling about or closely associated with the traumatic event. So basically this is saying that it comes to a point, it gets so overwhelming sometimes that you don't want to do anything. You don't want to change the situation. You don't want to work to do anything to avoid it. And I used to say that too. We used to, it's a fairy tale. But a lot of times, like, why would you take the apple? She's not stupid. Why would you, this random person gives you an apple, you take it? There's a sort of mental, you close your mind where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to fight. I don't want to try. I just don't want to. She was fine with these people, the doors, whatever, and she was just doing her thing and she wanted to just be left alone, right? Somebody offers you a solution of whatever kind, you're like, yeah, I'll take it. Let's be done with it. I'm fine. I'll take it. So that's the point that she was at. So her situation with the PTSD fits exactly into this. And then with the OCD, this is kind of a control. You control your environment. You control your situation to the best that you can. That, okay, this happened. Every time I close my eyes, I see this, what has happened to me. I see the betrayal. I have these dreams about it. And of course, I'm over-explaining. The story doesn't tell us all this. Then she was in this situation where she felt safe, kind of in control. So she felt like, okay, I'm going to control it. So OCD is you try to control your environment by keeping it a certain way, which is keeping it clean, and repeating certain things. And we see that where she does the same thing over and over again. Same thing every day. Cleans it exactly the same way. Puts everything exactly the same place every day. When the doors don't do it the same way, she kind of makes them do it exactly the same way every day. And that's what OCD is. You do things repetitively, not just clean, but repetitively. Everything has to be where it is, and it's tied to anxiety. If things are not the way they are, you get anxious, you get angry, you get uncomfortable. So clean, repetitive cleanliness, repetitiveness, and control. These are some of the things. There's many other things, that part of OCD, but these are some of the things. And we see these things with Snow White. Again, that's the question. Why would you want little girls to have all of these qualities? Or, these are not really qualities, but why would you want a little girl to even be exposed to these things in such a way, in such a strong way? Why would you want her to know that this even exists? Why is this something that she knows and she's that she's learning that this is a thing? It makes no sense. I don't understand why this is even something that we are. Yeah, makes no sense. So we did that, and then Cinderella. We talked about Cinderella. She has dependent mood disorder. Ariel also, along with hoarding, has that. So dependent mood disorder is excessive need to be taken care of, clingy behavior, fear of abandonment, just self-deprecating almost behavior, that you feel like insecurity is strong. Insecurity, you feel like there's nobody. If you don't have someone to take care of you, you will not be able to survive. And that's what it is, right? The fairy godmother, she feels like if she didn't help her, she wouldn't have anybody. She wouldn't be able to. So she would not have gone to the ball if fairy godmother had not come to help her, right? And she has a similar kind of, Ariel has some similar kind of thing going on. Who do we have left? Who was this? Aurora. Okay. I have taken a lot of your time. I'm so sorry, but I don't want to, I don't want to leave anything out because... All right. So we have Aurora. Where did Aurora go? Aurora is Sleeping Beauty. All right. Now again, we're going to go back to the assault thing that we talked about. What is this with all of these fairy tales and obsession with girls sleeping through things just happening to them? Somebody explain it to me. I can't. I can't with this behavior. And we let our kids watch it. Boys or girls, doesn't matter. This young girl, I mean, in what world is this okay? That a girl is asleep, lying down, and a boy comes and just kisses her, and everybody's like, oh, true love's kiss. I mean, come on. Come on. It is absolutely ridiculous. Again, assault. That is sexual assault. Call it what it is. First of all, again, that girl has depression. All right? She's sleepy, she's tired, she has major depression disorder, MDD. She's sleepy, she's tired, her movement is slow. If you're watching, even if you read the story or you watch the movie, the cartoon one, even the adaptations and stuff, you'll see that her movement is quite slow. She's, and for her to accept that she'll fall asleep, she was told that if you prick your fingers, you'll fall asleep. For her to accept that, even though she didn't know that this was going to be one of those sleeps and she's poisoned and whatnot, but for her to accept that, obviously she doesn't care about, living and all of that. And when she was given the crown by the fairies, she wasn't really that excited. She didn't show that liveliness that a young princess should show. She wasn't excited by things and by life as she should have been. So that's a sign of depression. But she was excited and happy, and she was shown in the garden at some point, or a field or something, and she was happy and excited and frolicking as princesses do. I don't know. So this came later. So her depression came over her. I don't know what was going on with her prince. It came over her because of him or something. But the progression of depression was shown in the movie, the cartoon movie, for sure. So, again, was she suicidal? Because she took the needle. That's the question I ask. Because she took the needle and pricked herself or let them prick her. And they said, you'll fall asleep. And she was okay with it. Did this show suicidal ideation in that? Like, if she can't have him, I'm just gonna, like, what is going on? I can't even. I just can't, these people. And as far as the Grimm brothers are concerned, I'm not surprised that they are okay with it. They've done worse. Believe me, they've done worse. So, let's quickly talk about Beauty and the Beast. The Beast has problems. He's a narcissist, and he's abusive on top of it. I mean, he asked for the daughter. The daughter was left with him, and he tortured her. He put her in a cell. Only when his, people, like, objects in his house told him, he gave her a room, I think. Did he even give her a room? He didn't treat her well. For the longest time, he kept her as a slave in his house. So I have nothing good to say about him. Actually, the show Once Upon a Time, that show depicted the Beast really well. That was a very, very accurate description of the Beast, and even of Beauty, a character of Beauty, where she was stuck in that. She obviously has Stockholm syndrome, where you get infatuated by the person who's enslaved you, for the lack of a better term. It could also be called the battered wife syndrome or battered person syndrome, where the person who's abusing you or who's treating you badly, you can't leave them. And every time they apologize to you, every time they tell you, I won't do it ever again, you believe them because you want to believe them, and you just, it's hard to leave. So she had that thing where she was back and forth. She was in love with him, and every time he said, no, I won't do it again, and I love you, and no, I would never want to hurt this person or that person, she would believe him, and she would come back to him. So that whole thing was quite accurate in that show, actually. But in the fairy tale, that whole idea of I can fix him, that a lot of not us, but a lot of women grow up thinking that, I want a bad boy, I can fix him. And of course, we all want that. We want to be saved, but then we want a bad boy we can fix, right? A bad boy with a good heart, but we can fix. That's the fantasy. But how does it work in real life? It doesn't. There is no such thing. There is absolutely no such thing. So yeah, the media is just playing, fairy tales especially, are just playing with us and just kind of making a fool of us. Now I want to talk about this one last one. I want to make sure I've done all of them because I don't want to miss any of the fairy tales, because that is the fairy tales that, putting them all together, going deep into them. Some of them are more important than others. That's why I want to go more in detail of some and not the others. I want to make sure that I've gotten all of them. 4. Yeah. So now I want to talk about Princess and the Frog. That is the most disturbing one. And those of you who've stuck by me all this time, thank you so much. Because I'm taking so much time and I'm making it so late, and I really do appreciate it. And those of you who are actually enjoying it, yeah, you get it, right? Okay. So, now we're going to talk about Princess and the Frog. This is Tiana. Tiana is the name of the princess. I'm gathering all of my things. so I can concentrate on the one that we have to do next. Now this one, I don't know how many of you have done it, have read it. I mean, let me open this again. So we talked about how most of them are from different places, different countries. Okay, just wanted to check. Yeah. So we talked about how they're from different parts of the world. From Germany, like Snow White is from Germany. Snow White is supposed to be 14 years old. And from everything that we, read or heard or researched about her, and we talked about, imagine a 14-year-old, right? Elsa and Anna, this one, Frozen, is from some Dutch story, and Cinderella is French. Beauty and the Beast is also French. So all of these are from different places, and the girls are not over 16. None of these girls are over 16. So these stories are being related, and all these girls are underage. They're all minor. And we're talking about all these romantic things, and a kiss, and a this and that. And now we're going to talk about Princess and the Frog. This girl is from New Orleans, which is in the U.S. And the biggest debate when this happened, actually the original story for Tiana was in the 18... Yeah, so original story was not, it was done in 1812, and it was known as The Frog Prince. So it was focused on the prince, and who was turned into a frog because of the curse and all of that. So it was focused on him. But the story was darker, like I said, and it had more moving parts to it, meaning it had more detail to it about the prince and what happened. And then later on, as time passed and Disney and whatnot, the story changed a little bit, but it still focuses on, the theme is the same. Theme is pretty much the same. So let me, I cannot finish without doing this. I know it's getting late, but I cannot. And I know that you wouldn't want me to, because this is the true nature of what these stories say and what these stories mean. Has to be shown. So this story is about, and for those of you who don't know, this story is about a prince who was cursed by his by an evil witch to live as a frog until he's kissed by a princess. And so then it cuts to a princess playing with a golden ball. In the original 1812 वाला जो version है उसमें a princess playing with a ball. What does that mean? How young is she that she's playing with a gold ball? Whether it's gold or golden, I'm not sure. That ball goes into a pond. This is a story that ended up in my board's English literature reading list. It ends up in the pond. A frog throws it back. The girl doesn't know it's a frog, the princess. She says, thank you. He said, you can thank me by giving me a kiss, or either giving me a kiss or, The princess thought he was mad, but she was eager. So this is the conversation they're having. He said, I'll get the ball back for you. You give me a kiss. The princess thought he was mad, but she was eager to get her ball. So she replied, of course you can. The frog dived into the pond and returned with the golden ball within seconds. The princess thanked him immensely and started walking back to her palace. "Wait, princess, wait," the frog stopped her. "I have come with you." "I have to come with you?" he demanded. "Wait, no, of course not," replied the princess as she ran inside her palace with her golden ball. Within minutes, the frog knocked upon the massive palace door. Now, he followed her, even though she said no. That's one thing. He followed her, even though she said no. The doorman opened the door. Frog started explaining everything. The king was passing by. He let the frog in. The princess then made the frog sit beside her at the dining table and allowed him to eat from her plate. Why did that happen? Because the father heard the conversation and he let the frog in. And the princess made, which means she had to pick him up, right? Okay. The princess then made the frog sit. She asked for a special glass for the frog to enjoy the drink. The princess was annoyed at the frog, but could not disobey her father, the king. At night, the frog followed the princess to her room. He entered the room and hopped onto her bed, relaxing comfortably on her pillow. "How can you do this?" The princess said as she flung the frog off her pillow onto the ground. Suddenly, she heard a voice from behind. "Thank you, lovely princess." She turned around and saw a handsome prince standing in the place of the frog. So here's the princess was perplexed, so the prince explained everything to her. "A witch had cast a spell on me. The spell could be broken only if I could spend time with the princess in her palace. I owe it to you for having broken the spell," he said as he bowed to the princess in gratitude. Now, the story goes on that, he came with his whatever carriage came and took her to the palace and they got married and whatnot. What happened here? And this is one of the most famous stories. The most famous stories. One of the Grimm's brothers' famous stories. Now what happened here? He forced himself into the house. Father said you have to obey him because the father knew he was a prince. And this would bond in the original story, this would bond their kingdoms, and forced his daughter to basically let her have sex with the dude. So he basically raped her. He got into bed and she kicked him out. How did she kick him out? He first forced himself onto her and then she kicked him out and kicked him out of bed, but he was a prince by then. So it didn't matter. I mean, can you imagine? And we are still, apparently this is in circulation. Apparently we're reading these stories. And we're not noticing what's being done. And the prince is still the hero of the story. The princess was abashed at how she behaved earlier, but remembered her day with the prince even as a frog. "I'm so sorry," exclaimed the princess. They soon spent time together. As the years passed, they married and lived happily ever after. Wow. And what is the moral of the story? Don't judge people by their looks. Wait for them to assault you? To rape you? What is the moral of the story? Like, what? I mean, really? The story has a moral of the story, and then it says the story has an important moral. This is absolutely beyond me. No kid should ever be exposed to this. No kid should ever come across anything like this. I just, and this is not the only thing that I judge extremely harshly. There are many, many other, obviously we talked about it, but I could take out, but this is just to think that these things are, our children are exposed to this constantly, and we are letting them be exposed to this is mind-boggling. So there's a theory by Albert Bandura and K. Busey, and I'm almost done. This is the last one. The clinical psychologist and Albert Bandusa is a clinical psychologist, and K. Busey is a professor and a researcher, psychologist, clinical psychologist again. The social cognitive theory of gender development. Now, they say, this theory says that people, mainly children, learn gender roles through observational learning, one, imitation, and reinforcement. And they learn from sources like family, peers, and media. So media is, again, one of the most important sources that kids learn from. What are the key factors? Social influence. Social influences क्या हैं? Parent and peer interaction. A child's own cognitive and self-regulatory processes, they're also key factors, like self-efficacy, basically. And other key factors are a child's own behavior and experiences. So, what does that mean? That everything that children are exposed to when it comes to media is वो उनकी तरबियत करता है. I mean, we've said this over and over again. This is another way of saying it. कि इन चीज़ों पे, and this research was done in the 90s, कि इन चीज़ों पर constantly research हो रही है. And we're being told and we're being shown that this matters. कि बच्चों को जो दिखाया जा रहा है और उनको जो सुनाया जा रहा है, that matters. And fairy tales are a big part of it because वो हम बच्चों को day one से सुना भी रहे हैं और दिखा भी रहे हैं. And this is on repeat. और ख़ास तौर पर लड़कियों के लिए it's a constant message कि the first thing you're going to do is find a man. ये हमारे cultural message भी है और फिर ये इनकी books में और fairy tales में और TV पे भी ये message है. So this becomes extremely important. And look at the last three messages. This guy is talking about, are you single? And then he just wrote the word sex. And this is the thing that even our boys learn from the fairy tales and from these TV shows. And this is what we're doing to our society, to a Muslim country, to a Muslim society. This is case in point. Literally proving my point. And that's why I was horrified when I saw this story that I read to you just now. And I know it's late and I'm still here for this reason, and my back's starting to give out on me, but for this reason, and those of you who can't sit through this, I completely understand. I didn't want to stop in the middle or didn't want to waste another day. That these things make it in our school curriculums. These things make it in our in our homes, because somebody buys it for us or we buy it not thinking what's going to be in it, and we just pass it on. And our kids read it and nobody blinks an eye. But the kind of damage we're doing, the kind of messages that are being passed on to our young girls, to even adults. I mean, if you keep reading or listening to the same thing, even as adults, psychologically that will have an effect on you. you will end up believing in it to some extent. 100% नहीं, लेकिन कुछ ना कुछ तो वहम में बैठ ही जाता है. And you and I are living proof of it. I will tell you that I'm living proof of it, because Walt Disney was a racist, he was sexist, he had extreme biases against anybody who wasn't white, anybody who wasn't rich. And I didn't learn that today. I've known this for 20 years? I was a huge Disney fan. I've known about all of these things for, decades and decades. But I was still a huge Disney fan. And I know that some of these things are innate in me as well. Even though people say my whole family calls me a huge feminist, which I am not. Lekin, all of these things, knowing all of these things, I'm still guilty of so much of this. So think about those little boys and girls, bichari, who were completely unaware. And they're being fed these things. So it's our job to first stop ourselves and then work on our little brothers and sisters and cousins and relatives, and definitely our children, and to make sure that we guide them right. All right, I've taken so much of your time. Again, apologies for the way things happened yesterday and today, and I hope it was worth it for you guys. And it took almost 2 hours. I'm so sorry. I know it was a lot of it was because of my disorganization and flipping pages and computer and this and that. Hopefully next time I will be more organized. And we have a guest speaker next time. And yeah, have a good night, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever, wherever you are. I'll see you next time.